So can anyone confirm me, like, is my screen able to visible or not?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, great. Okay, done. Great. Yeah, fine. So as we mentioned, see here today in this class, I'm going to for teach you like MVC architecture. So or else this is also technically called as three-tier architecture. So this is what we are planning to do that. So first I will give you a brief like idea how generally we will do on search on any data or anything. So for example, let's think about Google only. Okay, so when we want to search something, first what we will do, we will open the first of all the google.com web page. So that is we call search page, we call simply. So this is the first we will open generally. And after that, once we open that, so like, this is the interface, I can say that, or the UI screen, or whatever you are able to see here, like some image is there and some search box will be there, and some content will be there. So this is what we call GUI, or the screen which customer can able to interact with the Google server. That means a customer, a end user directly cannot interact with the Google main server, because due to security and due to data privacy, so he's not allow us to directly interacting with the server to get the data whatever we require, but he's giving a provision as an interface to interact with the server. That means whatever the data you are looking from the server, or whatever the data you are looking for search, so that you can type and search, and that Google will give you the links and you can navigate there. So likewise he's giving an option. So now once you type something, like example, I'm just giving Java tutorial, assume that Java tutorial I'm typing. Okay, so now I'm giving a keyword called, two keywords, one is Java, another one tutorial. So these two keywords will send to the server whatever the keywords, like if you observe that here search k equals to Java plus tutorial. So these keywords I'm sending to the server. Now once server got that particular keywords from the customer, now to the matched Java tutorial keywords, what are the links which are mapping in the web portal, or DNS, or I can say that WW web consortium, that all links will be displayed over here. So this is the response what we are getting from the Google server. So this is we call response, and this response is coming based on this particular keywords whatever we given in the search box. So likewise the process going on. So now the same thing I will explain briefly how we will do practical way. Okay, so now as you understand, first to interact with the server we should develop an interface where end user can interact with that. So that means first task it will be, we need to develop a screen or a web page where an end user can interact through this particular page to communicate with the server. So that is the first we need to do, and this is we call generally GUI, graphical user interface in generally, and this page will help you to communicate with the server basically. So whenever you want to communicate with the server, we will use this particular GUI screen. Okay, and now this will interact with the end user basically. So because end user cannot interact with directly to the server, so he will use this particular what we can say GUI screen to communicate with what you can say that server. Okay, so he is the user now. So as a end user, when we coming to the application, now I will open this particular geo page like www.google.com, and now I can send some input to the server. That is the way how the communication will be generally happen. And after execution of, after sending your entire input, again the output also will come back to the same screen whatever we are able to see. So now in this place our input will be replaced with, now with output we call just before I told you response, like as I mentioned the links what we got it. So that means first initially as a end user he will give the input to the respective server, and that will come back as a response to the end user. So now end user can able to see this particular response as usual. But to get the, see the data sent by the server definitely, but the data whatever we got from the server, we should make over it in terms of this links, like this link and title and this particular description, this design, whatever it is there, that we should, as a developer, as a designer, we should make over it. Only server will send the data, it doesn't give any styles, or it doesn't give any alignments, like this way only you should display, it is not described. Just a few seconds now. ఏమేంద్రా? అవును. అవునా? ఇప్పుడు అర్జెంటా? ఉంది. ఆ నెంబర్ పంపించేదా? నెంబర్‌కి పెట్టేస్తా. నీకు పంపించాలా? అతనికి పంపించాలా అంటున్నాను నేను. నువ్వు పంపించినట్టు అతని నెంబర్ ఇస్తే అతనికి పంపించేస్తా కదా అంటున్నాను. నేను అలా అంటున్నాను. నీకు ప్రాసెసింగ్ పడుతుంది అంటున్నావుగా. వద్దా? సరే అయితే నాకు నెంబర్ వాట్సాప్‌లో పెట్టేసేయ్, ఇదే నెంబర్. నేను పంపిస్తా ఇప్పుడు. 15,000ఆ? నేను ట్రాన్స్‌ఫర్ సరే నేను ట్రాన్స్‌ఫర్ చేస్తాను. సరే నేను చేస్తాలే. నాకు అది వాట్సాప్‌లో నెంబర్ పెట్టు చాలు. Yeah, fine. So likewise, whatever just explain, so likewise user always communicating whether you want to give the input, or you want to take the, you want to see the output from the server which is generated by the server application. So both you can see by this particular GUI. Now as a developer, see, as an end user you can use it definitely. So let us assume that if you go for the screen only, whatever the screen just now I showcase you, yeah, this is the screen. As a user you can able to see definitely as a customer, but as a developer it also should develop, otherwise it can't be looks like this one, or the data cannot be displayed over here. So that means as a developer or as a team we should also develop the front end also. So that means this page also need to be developed by the developer or designer to give it to the end user. So to develop this we will follow, or we will use a component called web design. In general, web design topic we will use. So to do this we have different technologies, like as I mentioned already, like to create such kind of web page, the traditional language we are using HTML. So HTML will help you to create the web page. So whatever the web page we are able to see over there, so to that particular web page statically if you want to create, we will use particular HTML, and HTML doesn't make any kind of interactions, or I can say that it doesn't make any kind of logics. It's just a static web page, a dummy web page we can able to create by using HTML. We can't do anything, what we can say that actions. And also one more thing, HTML doesn't even make any styles, like example colors and alignments, effects, animations or styles. So even that also cannot handled by the HTML. So HTML just it's prototype or markup language which will help you to create a static web pages. And now to that particular web page, if you want to give any kind of styles or any kind of like what we can say that colors or animations, whatever the things you want to do, so that all we can able to perform by using CSS. So that is the what you call ideology of the basically CSS. So CSS or the enhancement is, now recently we got a new framework with respect to CSS is Bootstrap. So this Bootstrap will be useful, or CSS or Bootstrap, these four are useful, these two are useful basically to style the web page. So whenever you styled it, or whenever you are able to see the colors on the web page or the animations on the web page, so that is because of you are achieving this CSS only. Okay, so likewise if you want to create a static web page we are using HTML, and if you want to do the styling of the respective web page we are using CSS and Bootstrap. So that is the two more technologies we require for GUI creation, like front end creation. And next, to do the a kind of validations or a kind of uh, a small kind of interactions on the front end itself without interacting the server. So such kind of things we can perform by using JavaScript or what you can say that JS, so shortly we call, but a language called JavaScripting. And to this also frameworks will be there. But if you want to become, as mentioned in the previous class also, if you want to become a front end developer only, not the back end, so from this only you want to stop your career. Now to the enhancement JS also you have an option like React JS and also Angular JS. So these are the two very popular frameworks currently in the market to develop client-side scripting with respect to interact with the server. And this is we call front end designing. So likewise we are as we already decided to learn the back end technology like Python and Java, so that's why we are stopping up to JS. Like we are going to be learning HTML, CSS, Bootstrap, JS. But though if someone personally interested, you can enhance your front end skills to the React or Angular. So this is all we call front end, and this logic whatever we are going to be developing, so that is called presentation logic. So that is called presentation logic. And this particular components or pages whatever we developed, we are called that are technically views. So views are nothing but where the web pages can able to see by the end user. So this is the whatever the code we written for to display that views or to design that particular web page, we call presentation logic, or we call web design also. Now the point is, once we develop the front end design, accordingly the back end development will be start to develop. So now we have to develop the server side logic where this particular code will be deployed on the server, so that everyone can send a request to the server and they can interact with the server application. Like, so whatever this component like code, whatever the code we are writing or the logic we are implementing, so that should be placed in the server, and that can be used by many people. So that means as like this user, many other people also can send the request to this particular logic and can get the response from the respective server. So likewise we are using this particular server logic to interact with the client. So we can send the request and also we can get the, as I mentioned, response from the server. And to get this response, some action has to be taken, so that action will be implemented as part of this particular server. So server is also a computer as like your laptop, as your desktop, but only the difference is it has more capacity or more software capabilities to process the multiple requests at a time. So that is the basic advantage of the server, but it is also a computer as like our computers only. And GUI is also able to see in our system, so that is we call client mission. Basically where you are able to see this presentation logic, generally where you are able to see generally if someone, it will be the browser. So without browser we can't see anything, so that is we technically called as client. So where you open the browser, so in this case I open the browser in my mission, so my mission is will treat as a client in this case, and Google server somewhere it is there in the USA or India, so that is acting as a server. So the data is coming from the server. So now my laptop is acting as a client and this browser is acting as a client interface. Likewise, the client configuration will be done. Similarly, server configuration need to be done to handle your request and response. And now the very important point is, whatever the request is coming from the client or whatever the input parameters sending by the client, that we should read and we need to process. So for that also we should write the logic or code. So that only we are writing in terms of backend technology. So one stack is Java, second one is Python. Third we have PHP and .NET and Node.js and Ruby and Parallel. So these are the different technologies which are acting as a server side. So that means if you learn any of this particular one of the technology, it's not mandatory that everyone should learn everything. So you can learn any of this one of the technology and you can start working on backend. So that is the ideology. But these are all core languages. It takes a lot of time to understand or to what I can say that implement the logics. So for that, all the people like all the what do you call respect to technology developers given us frameworks. So basically to work with simplified, like example Django or Jund or MVC, such kind of frameworks they given, so that all frameworks will simplify your logic and will give handle your request and response. But ultimately the fundamental core technology is required to write your backend. So that's why if you learn any of the shown technology in the screen, you will become a backend developer, or I can say that programmer, I can say that, so or software developer. So if you are learning some programming, then we can become a developers in generally. So now this fellow will able to will read the data from the front HTML application and can process that and send back the data to the respective user in terms of response. Again, it is a web page. Now this person like who will develop the Java or Python or PHP, this particular developer or this particular technical guy, who should also have the knowledge to interact with the DB. Why? Because sometimes whenever you required or whenever you want to communicate with backend to store some data or to get some data, so we require to communicate with the definitely database. So such kind of like as I mentioned already, like we have MySQL or SQL Server or Oracle, MongoDB. So these are all different databases which are in the market and to communicate with your backend logic. Now this particular server, when and they required, it will communicate with the respect to database. So it will store the data into the database. Similarly, it will fetch the data from the database. So likewise, it will do the both the communication when and they required. So likewise, the server will, like example, if you consider the registration, so it means you are going to be storing your data into the database. Consider the login, it means you are comparing the login credentials with existing data in the database. That means you are trying to fetch the data. So both the operations we can perform, even delete, update, what are the commonly we performed in our application side, that every operation we will do communicating with particular database. So similarly, now our particular programming we are writing in the Java, people will write in the Java, Python people will write in the Python, but DB cannot understandable by the respective technologies. DB can only understand in terms of a language called SQL. So that's why we should learn a common language by everyone, structured query language, to communicate with the database. And now to communicate this particular core logic or backend logic to database, generally we will use drivers. So like example JDBC or .NET, ADO.NET, uh, MySQL, PyMySQL, some drivers which are available in the market. So that drivers will help us to communicate from server application to database to store the data and as well as to fetch the data. So this is the MVC, like this is we call views, and the logic whatever we are writing here we call models. So models means backend logic generally. So models which will help to communicate with the data, and to entire this communication will take care by generally controller generally. So controller will take care. And even if you go for Python, there will be a terminology called template. So likewise it depends on the technology, the intermediate component will different, but ultimately the front end will back end will communicate with some medium. So that medium only we call generally controller. So likewise the entire communication has happens in generally in any programming language. So is there any doubt as of now? So if you have any doubt, please ask me, Nana. Nana? Yeah, I will tell you. Yes, Nana. So whatever the code we are writing in the programming with respect to Java or Python, it will be in the obviously respective format. Like example, if you write in the Java, it will be the Java syntax. If you write the program in Python, it will be Python syntax. But database can only understand SQL language. Nana. It doesn't understand your Java. It does not understand your Python. So to make it understandable or to make it both are communicatable, there should be a driver concept. Like drivers are nothing but third party softwares which will be used to communicate both in same media. So in terms of I can say the translators. So generally if see a English guy wants to communicate with Hindi person, so they cannot directly communicate. So at that time we can use in drivers. So the drivers will help us acting as mediators or translators to send or receive the request and response between the your core logic to database. So like that the drivers will be helpful. So examples are for this. For Java people we use JDBC, and for Python people we use PyMySQL driver names. Any more doubts? Great. Shall I go then? Yeah, great. And as we mentioned, so the next point we need to understand is, as I mentioned already, project view. So that's why the package whoever chosen in this tech, like in this year, so that's why the package is framed in such a way that to cover all these sort of technologies to build a complete application. So that means once you understand these three areas you can become a full stack developer. That means front end you can able to develop, back end you can able to develop, and core logic also you can able to implement. So all three areas we are going to be covering as a fresher. It is very understandable and important to you to understand everything. But as I mentioned again, you should more focused on server logic. That means if you whoever enrolled in the Java, please focus on core Java practice. Like once core Java starts, you should focus on that one. If people are Python, you should focus on Python. That means in interview, if you attempt any interview, it's not even from a startup company to like a star MNC like TCS or Infosys, IBM, or whatever the companies you chosen, the basic fundamental they will ask from the core language only. If you go for any interview, Java, you should more on core Java they will ask, more on Python they will ask. But other things, whatever I'm teaching or whatever we are covering, that will help you to understand how the application we are generating or developing, and how we are able to create a complete application our own experience. Like example, at the end of the semester we have a coding implementation. So there by whatever you learn this, by that you can able to create the your own application that will give you a more what we can say the experience for you from your side, like you can understand and you can able to implement at all things. Okay. And now with respect to project view, we will have a phases. Like in college, with respect to college we have phases. First one we have, sorry, requirements. First one we have requirements. So in this, basically in requirements terminology, basically we have to submit the title and abstract. Yeah, these are only basically. So in terms of requirements of college project wise, we have to submit the title. So we need to submit the abstract. See how to select the choose the title generally means a title will be a project or a website or a mobile application or a innovation, anything it might be. So it should give some value to the customer, or it should be give you some value to the application orientation. So such a way that the title should be selected. And once you select the title, then we have to think about what we are going to be doing in the project, or what we are implementing in the project. That all details we should include in the abstract, like what technology we are using, what softwares which we are required for the application, and is this particular title is a new title or you are taking from existing. So if it is existing, what newly you are developing, what is existing is there. So what your project will value added to the respective existing one. So such kind of analysis you need to do in the requirements. And then after, once you fix the title or once you confirm your title, then you need to start the analysis. That means whether you can able to finish the title within this particular 1 year or within this particular 6 months, or is it feasible to implement first of all, or else Is it feasible to implement in my machine, in my laptop, or do we require to purchase any laptop, or is it feasible to financial wise, is it less cost or not? So such all things you need to take care while you're developing the application in real time. Or if you go for any, like example, you went for some client and client ask you to do some application. Now you need to think like that. You should perform analysis in ground level, so that you can estimate the cost, you can estimate the time, and you can estimate the risk. Like example, how much the cost for that particular project to build up, and how many resources we require, like 2 people, 3 people, 10 people, how many we require to complete that project, and how many developers required, how many testers we require, how many designers required, and similarly how many days will it take, and also is there any risk involved in the project development, or is it anything not feasible to implement, such thing also you need to address. So like that you need to analysis everything. Once your analysis done, you have to make a complete draft for the analysis. So that is only we technically called as SRS, software requirement specification. So where it includes like technical specifications, and as well as software specifications, and hardware specifications, functional specifications, and non-functional specifications. All specifications what you want to add as part of your project, everything we should add as part of analysis generally. So once analysis is done, that means you are in the situation that you should be able to, whether you want to proceed the project or not, you should be able to take a decision whether you want to continue the project, whether you want to discard the project. Because you identified in the analysis it is very difficult to finish within the 1 month or 2 months, assume that, but the timeline we have only 2 months. Now if you really take that particular project, it is very risk for you. So that means every day you need to tense about it. But if you properly planned it, so properly analyzed it, even though you are not your situation that you cannot complete, then don't take the project. It's very bad, what you call bad impact on you. So such a way that you have to perform the analysis, and once analysis completed, then start prototyping, or else we can call that it is only called design, and start the designing of the application. Whenever you are planning to start a project, please don't directly go for implementation. First, make a prototype or make a design. It should reflect what you are in the mind or what you are planning to do in the future. In simpler way, I will tell you. See, if before starting to construct any building or any house, no one will start directly from the ground. They will first plan it, and then they will design as a blueprint. Accordingly they will develop it. Why? Because if you have a design in hand, you can understand whether you are going in the right direction, whether you are going in the what you are expecting is coming or not. So by comparing that, you are day by day you can check it. Similarly, once we have the design, once we have the prototype, it is very easy way to cross check what we are doing and how we are doing. So such a way that prototype will help us to test our application very easily, and also it will guide a mentor, I can say that, a guide for your developer, so that developer by seeing the design he can easily develop the application. Once the design completed, definitely we need to start working on developing. That is what we call, so developing in the sense coding. So now whatever the technology we learned so far, by using that language, we have to start the coding part. Coding, it includes front end, back end, middle end. It's not only front end, not only middle end. It includes everything. Like in the implementation, you should create a database design, you should develop the server side logic, and you should develop the front end logic, and you should integrate all together as a single application. And then once the all the areas completed, then you need to start the testing. So that is the basic thing. But testing also will done in two ways. One is basically unit testing. Basically that means individually each developer will perform the testing. As a whole system, whether it is working fine or not, that is we technically call as generally system testing. So these two also we need to perform. And once testing is done, everything is clarified, every bug is fixed, then definitely we are good to release the project into the market, or good to sell our project into the market. So if you someone wants to become an entrepreneur from your people, from you use your side, so just follow the these are the guidelines. to start even a company also. Like you should get with a good title, a good application, and start invest on that and build a prototype and showcase to the investors. Like see, if someone really interested start a new company, a startup, so this is the idea, this is the startup procedure. First you need to get up with some title or some idea and make a prototype for that and showcase that prototype in front of the business people or business heads and start finding the investors. Once you find a good investor and once you find good like what angel investor we called stakeholders, then you can start in a funding and you can start your company. So like that, if someone really see, it's not always be a job holder. You can you can also think in such a way that you will be an entrepreneur also, like you are a job provider. So that is also a good tag. But for that, definitely a good idea is required, a good commitment is required, and also a team is required. So if you have such kind of qualities, such kind of commitments, definitely you can also start a small company and you can start to giving the jobs to the people. It's not only always so don't think that I want to get a job and I want to do something like which in the company. So think in the, if you have really skills, if you have really funding, so think in such a way that why can't I start a company and what is the scope of the company, like that also you can think in some got. So it is also a good aspect in right now, because IT is not a small sector, is not a limited sector. It's not limited to some TCS or Infosys. Whoever interested, whoever coming with some innovation ideas, you will be in the top in the couple of years only. But only you should showcase some interest and commitment towards the particular idea or business. So like that also it will be one of the good things, Rana. So this is what all about our project work and project architecture or model what we are following in the upcoming days. And this is all about today's. And tomorrow I will start git nana. So it is also common for everyone, like both technical people. So git, so how to use the, as I mentioned already. So how many you already created git account, I'm not sure, but if not, please create the git account by tomorrow. So as I mentioned in the first class also, and tomorrow I will show you how to use the git manually and through command prompt. That means technically. Manually means as a GUI we can upload, download, or you can share or delete whatever you want, you can do that. And also you can perform these all operations by using the programmatical way, using some commands. So that also I will show you some by how to push the code, how to get the code, or how to clone the application. So such kind of provisions I will show you tomorrow class. So it is very very important, and tomorrow just focus. And even as I mentioned already, so once git starts means your practicals also will start. That means you can start the practice. So anyway, tomorrow I will start the git, and if you have any doubts you can ask me. But as of now I'm sign off. If anything else please ask me, otherwise I'm closing the class. So no doubts. No doubts. Okay then. So good night, bye, take care.